to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
Thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they got away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Is a science thing, is a science place. 'Tis a scientific fact that we're all up in your face at a time. Once again, for the one, the only Protonic reversal. Welcome to it, welcome to it, welcome to it, welcome to it. Additionally, welcome to it. I'm all out of sorts because we're doing this. This is a special edition Protonic reversal that I wanted to get in before the guy I'm having on runs around all over this great country playing shows and stuff. So we'll get to that. Of course, if you've clicked on this, I always act as if people don't know what's happening, and I don't know why I do that after like 10 years of doing this show. But obviously, it's going to be Brian Cook. There's the Russian Circles, Sumac, Botch, Torment Glory. These arms are snakes. I'm going to be talking to him. I've had him on the list of people. There is a list, by the way, and it's not an enemies list, to talk to for a very, very long time. I think it's kind of funny how I ended up getting him on the show, so we'll talk about that with him as well. But before we do literally any of that, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who's been touring and recording for 23 years. Most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may not be household names. This is episode 357. If this is your first time listening to the show, archives of it are available for free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding, at protonicreversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/protonicreversal will achieve that goal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around on the internet, or even leave a review. All of that helps people discover the show. It beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. And it's just a darn nice thing to do, really. So yeah, Brian Cook, there's so much going on with this dude. Like we got Russian Circles, we got Sumac, Botch. So busy, yet he made time to be on this show, and I appreciate that about him. It goes to show you that complaining on the internet works. Brian Cook, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Do you mind starting off with how I remembered I wanted to have you on the show, which is literally just a response to something you said on the internet?
Well, yeah. Well, I
thought it was interesting.
Well, yeah, I was on Twitter, which I'm usually not on Twitter anymore. I've been trying to actively get away from it, but there's always just like a little bit of engagement that really only works in the Twitter format. Like I don't check my DMs on Instagram unless it's, for people I know, because I just don't need to like be harassed by strangers and things like that. I don't have Facebook.
Right.
There's not a PO box to like send mail to. So
and well-concealed cache.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Twitter's sort of like the one open source, not open source, but it's like sort of the one thing where like, I guess I'm approachable, which sounds weird, but I just kind of realized it's like, man, like usually when I have a week of downtime, it's a lot of catching up on like email interviews and press stuff. And that just hasn't existed in the last, I don't know, really since COVID. And it's not for a lack of things happening. And it's not for a lack of a decline in people seemingly enjoying what we do. It just seems that there's no people filling the void of, weeklies reducing their music coverage and zine culture kind of fading from its heyday, and music blogs, like, fanzine style music blogs just don't seem to be as common, or maybe I'm just excited in another.
No, they aren't.
Sphere, yeah, that's.
And you brought up an important point too, which is sort of like back in the day, because like myself, you've been at it for a long time, and it would be like you didn't need to be like the biggest act in the world. You would be like, oh, you're going to be playing, Chicago. Here's this Chicago thing that you're going to talk to, and they're going to give you this coverage, and it'll, like maybe it moves the needle, maybe it doesn't, but it's still part of the process, and it helps in people discovering the band as well as reaching your people, which now it's all about just reaching your people, right? Like building an audience is almost impossible. But I think you hit on something that I don't see anybody talking about. And I think that's when I think about what I try to do with this show, in a sense, and I've been doing it a while, so it hasn't always been this way, but I feel like it's kind of like filling that kind of void, that sort of like fanzine void. And again, just literally making the kind of show I want to hear, just like how I make the music, kind of music that like I feel like I'm not hearing that I want to hear, and anything else. But I'm just struck by how few of that you ever see compared to how it wasn't back in the day. And I don't know whether it's like the consolidation of media and people getting laid off and people like, we don't need a print media section, or we don't need reporters. Why would we need that? Or whatever. Or just like the fact that everything is just in service of the algorithm now. It's a systemic problem.
Yeah. And part of me wonders if, just people haven't really caught up to it yet, which I guess was the whole point of the tweet, where it's just sort of like, hey, has anyone noticed that like you don't read interviews with artists really anymore, or you just don't see them, because it's not that like you're just not seeing them, it's just that they're not really happening. And it used to be that like I had a rule for maybe 10 years or so that I only did email interviews, just because there had to be a way of weeding out how many interviews Russian Circles were doing. And I felt like I was giving better interviews if I had time to write out.
Think about what you wanted to say. Yeah. And like really like get it locked down exactly the way you want it. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Then like 2 album cycles ago, it was like, hey, it seems like we're like maybe not getting as much coverage as we used to, even though the band seems to be doing better. But let's start doing, video and phone conversations and whatnot. And then even with like the last album cycle, it's just like there was almost no interviews to be done, and it was bizarre.
And I mean, I feel like there's been people have been trained to almost be ADD now too. Like it's sort of like, oh my god, words. I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
I want to look at like a TikTok video or something. And and I think that's, and that's just based on all of these corporations that are profiting off it in different ways. But it's weird that like now people are sort of trained to think of like, well, this has always been the way. Just like all music is available for free, and that is the natural order of things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I don't see it articulated. And I've kind of noticed the same sort of thing, but it's like, whatever. I'm the glorified nobody, really. Like no one's, like people look for Conan Neutron, but not like that. They're looking for anything like with our Russian Circles or any of the bands that you're a part of. And I think that like the fact that you were calling it out, I think is fascinating, because I don't see anyone talking about it. You hear about the death of print journalism, right? It's like, well, what replaced it? Nothing, I guess. TikTok? I don't know. Yeah. Like the TikTok that's an Instagram? I mean, like what they each have these like new things that they want bands to do, where it's like, look, I don't want to be an internet influencer. I want to play shows. I want to make records. Like, why is that? Like, I don't want to do all these other things.
Yeah. And I think that's the other tricky thing, because on the one hand, it's like, we both kind of came up in a DIY culture where it's like you're used to doing a lot of things for yourself, whether it's packaging records or booking tours. So it's like there's not this aversion to like doing work that surrounds the actual process of creating or performing. But
absolutely,
it's definitely weird how much of it now is. I mean, I guess it's in service of making the music more popular, but it's just, yeah, it's like modeling, or it's like, oh, I didn't know I had to like model and like,
right. You have to think totally like, oh, what would be a funny picture that we can take that might get the algorithm to engage? And
yeah.
Like, oh, Jesus.
I'm just like blown away by like how many photo shoots it seems like some artists do these days. Where it's like, are you doing a photo shoot like every week?
Yeah. When do you write any music? Do you do that or no?
Yeah. It's
well, and then also the idea of it, you know, there has to be music videos now again, which is sort of like that was a thing that like when we came up, like that was like mostly like dying or dead, right? Because MTV certainly wasn't around, and then like with the advent of, well, first was Google Video, then it was YouTube, where it's like, oh, now it's, you pretty much have to do that. You know, the label's like, well, how many videos are you making? What do you mean? A couple, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, sure, all right.
Well, and I think that there's also a thing that, and some people kind of reference this in the Twitter thread, but I think because so much of the work that musicians are expected to do now is social media related, there's greater transparency in terms of, you know, who we are as people. So maybe there's no mystique, so there's no questions to ask anybody, but it's also frustrating because it's like, I don't want, you know, I'm happy to post on Instagram and post pictures of my dog and stuff like that,
which are great, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, he's a cute dog, so I'm happy to, but you know, I feel like every artist now just has to put so much of themselves on the front end, you know, fully exposed in order to like generate interest. And it's like, I kind of liked how I had no idea what Jello Biafra looked like.
Yes.
When I first heard Dead Kennedys, like he was just this like weird guy with a lisp, but could also be this kind of scary, weird, deep voiced guy when he was in character. And just like, who is this person?
I was listening to the Melvins for a long amount of time before I ever actually saw them play, and I was like, I don't know what this guy who's singing looks like. And then I was like, oh, I was way off when I finally saw Buzz Osborne. It's like I couldn't possibly have predicted that. But I think you hit on something very important, because there's now this utter melding of the art and the artist now, and that's not even like, it's not even possible not to do that, unless you're just like, I don't know, like the internet equivalent of writing manifestos in the woods, I guess. I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of cool, I mean, I don't know. Now I just listen to like a lot of weird metal stuff because it's like they're good at creating that layer. I mean, they're good at not giving a shit about not having an audience. They're good at, you know, reverting back to the, like, we only do cassette tapes and we don't have a social media presence. And like the only pictures of us have been like blown out, Xeroxed 20 times so it looks grainy and scary, and
hanging out in
like,
some forest somewhere,
with a sword,
right.
It's like, good for you. It's like, maybe that's the way to go.
Well, I mean, it's an aesthetic, right? It's almost like the anti-image aesthetic. I mean, look what Nirvana did, right? Like that was like that was a backlash at like all the preeny and like hair metal bands and all the spandex and what have you. And that in of itself was an image as well. But now I feel like it's even like bolder, because it's like, well, you risk digital obscurity that way. Even if you're a known artist, like just, okay. Getting back to the site whose name we shall not speak, because I refuse to call it the letter that dude calls it. I said something today about, it kind of sucks that like these days people will be like, hey, when are you playing, you know, insert name of city here. And it's like, dude, we just played there 2 weeks ago. Yep. And they're like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know what to do about that. Like, what is there anything? And this is another thing I've heard like people in bands talk about, and you know, music fans as well, where it's just like it's almost impossible. Even to find the stuff like you do really like, it's like really hard, because if it doesn't serve the algorithm and or be in the zeitgeist, then it's almost disused. Mm-hmm. And that's horrifying, and it's doubly horrifying that like there's a think piece on everything. So why isn't there a think piece on that? I don't know, because nobody cares about bands, probably. I think that's answering my own question, but
yeah.
But then I think about like and guess what? We're gonna talk about one of your bands. I think about Botch, and the fact that like Botch coming up like in the time period where there was the internet, but certainly not how we know it now, and not having any of that. Like I remember I first heard I think it was We Are the Romans first, and I was like, oh wow, this is cool. This is interesting. Like this is, and like I didn't know what anybody in the band looked like. I didn't know. I didn't know like if anyone else knew who this band was. Like it was just like, I don't know. I like this. This is good. And I feel like there's just this immediate gratification of being like, oh, okay, well, so they have 70,000 listeners, and they're from this city, and like they're just like you just like pop, 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 pop. Okay, now I know everything about this band. I've heard their entire discography, and now I'm moving on to the next thing. That you don't get that level of like deep nerdery. That I don't know. I mean, that's obviously is why I'm doing this, and and whatnot is I'm still a deep nerd, but. I just think it's not like that one way is wrong and one way is right. It's just I think it's a different experience, and I sometimes wonder about that, and I wonder about the efficacy of it and long-term sustainability for artists, where it's like everybody's forced to become an influencer somehow.
Yeah. It's like once you start talking to the camera on your Instagram, it's like you turn a corner, and it's like anytime you have a friend who all of a sudden like you open their phone on social media, they're like, "What's up?
What's up, peeps?" Yeah.
It's like, oh no.
I can't do it, dude. I can't do it. I'm like,
turn the corner.
And people are like, you have a show. I'm like, yeah, but that's different. It's a conversation. And like, I did it for 6-7 years without doing a video component. And I just basically did it out of like, sure, let's try this, whatever. And then like, people like it. All right, fine, then I'll do that. But it's like, no, it's what is being said that's important, not the fact that there's people's heads on screen.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna fade anyone for talking at the camera to their what I can only imagine are their fans and brands.
I have those people that I follow. It's fine. It's just it's weird when it's someone that starts doing it. It's like, okay, like,
there they are.
This is a choice. But
there they are. Let's talk a little bit. Okay, so I want to go through a bit of everything. I mean, we could just like grind on this like all day, like seriously. And I appreciate you sticking with me on it because I think these are questions that need to be talked about more, especially by someone of your stature, a working musician who's out there and doing it. And also, and I cannot stress this enough, not just known for one thing. Because I think now, whatever, it's not necessarily being a polymath, but like when there's like, okay, so, Russian Circles is running around, Sumac's running around, freaking Botch is running around, right? I mean, they like there's, and they all have their own audiences, and they all have their own algorithm and circle that they're in, and there's some overlap, sure, but it's like, are the same people that are into These Arms Are Snakes into Russian Circles? Not necessarily, maybe they are, I don't know, but like, that's up for the algorithm to decide, I guess, and I feel like if you aren't, that's Iggy Pop, then it's like you get in this weird situation where the algorithm doesn't really know what to do with you.
Yeah,
necessarily. But then also by the same token, for me, I'm like, oh, that's why I'd be like, oh, it'd be deeply fascinating to have you on because like there's all of these different kinds of bands to talk about from all these different eras, and I think that's interesting. And we will, in fact, do that at some point. But revisiting the Botch stuff, that's got to be kind of nuts, right? Because that band, again, it's a different epoch of time, really, right? And like you put out, probably like a freaking 24 albums since then or something along those lines.
Yeah, probably. Who knows?
So is it like baby pictures or something when you go back to like learning those incredibly complicated and well-written songs?
It's tricky. I think we did a good job of I think there's definitely songs in the catalog that are still very resonant to us personally, and then there's stuff that we wrote as teenagers where it's like we don't need to revisit that stuff, so it's the set list is very heavy on the albums and final EP and not on the 7 inches and things like that.
All the more obscure stuff.
Yeah. But it's still in the wheelhouse of things that I enjoy. And, I don't think there's a huge progression, or I shouldn't say progression. I don't think there's a huge stylistic shift from something like Sumac to Botch. So, it's not an entirely new skill set, but it's definitely a lot more frantic and definitely a lot more physically taxing than most of the stuff that I do these days. So
it's intense. It's very an intense show and an intense music as well, right? I mean, it's and which isn't to say that your other bands are not, but it's like there are. I think you hit something important. It's a It's a different kind of intensity.
Yeah. And there's just a general like tempo and pace to things that's like, oh, this is like young person music. Or even
totally.
even when Sumac, Sumac has parts that are really busy and fast and technical, but there's still something about the way they're placed in the songs where it's like, all right, get ready, old guys. We're getting ready to do this. Whereas Botch is just like, Botch is just like out of the gate. Like, let's just do 5 minutes at like our top performing speed. And it's, that's tough.
Just like dropping the grenade in the middle of the room and on you go. How did it come together for you guys to be playing again? Because I remember there was a thing where, because obviously Hydra Head
folded.
It folded. Yeah, I guess I was trying to think of. Thank you. I was trying to think of a word. I'm trying to think, and nothing happens. And then Sargent House reissued We're the Romans like last year, right? Like late last year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there was a new song.
Correct.
That's why I was like, new song. What? Like what was the idea behind that? And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, like the reunion possibility has been something that's basically come up every 6 months or so ever since we broke up, just because there's always like a festival that wants to know, or when Hydra had folded and we were trying to find a new label, then it's every label's like, are you going to do shows? And it's like, no. It's just people still want them, like people still buy it when it gets reissued on vinyl every 5 years. So Sargent House was just like, we just want to do it. And there's no expectation that we were doing shows or anything like that. But then over the course of COVID, our guitarist Dave was working on a solo record and, recruiting guest vocalists to sing on various songs. And he did one song that was a little heavier, so he recruited our singer Dave to sing on it. And then he's like, well, as long as I have Dave on it, do you want to play on it? I was like, sure, I'll play on it. The whole time thinking this is just going to be one of Dave's solo songs.
It's some buds that know how to play well together, like playing on a Buds record.
Yeah. And it's COVID. So it's like, oh my God, there's something I can do that's creative. And like, let's please. Yes.
Yeah. That sounds okay. Sure.
I would love to do that. And then by the time all that was laid down, it's like, oh, well, is this excluding Tim now? So Tim, contributed to it. And then that just coincided with all these reissues. And, I don't want to talk shit about the remix on side D of We Are the Romans, but side D of Romans was originally a remix of an old song that some friends of ours did. And I just never listened to it. And I don't think a lot of people ever really listened to it. And it was just kind of like, I feel like remix culture has evolved so much that this just feels a little dated and not really crucial to the album. So like, why don't we put this thing that we all did over COVID on side D, and then that'll give something new to the people. And it wasn't meant to be a reunion thing or anything like that. It was just like, hey, this is something we all worked on and it's fun. And side D was always just like a weird random thing anyway. So here's
it fits the motif of the record. Well, and then when you did, everybody freaks out because it's like, what? There's a new Botch song?
Yeah.
Like everyone like losing their mind suddenly, like, which
way,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I just felt like an asshole because it was just, there was this big caveat when we posted about it. It's like, this is not a reunion. We're not playing shows. We're not doing more songs. This is the only thing. But then like the second that happened, it was just another tidal wave of offers coming in. And
everybody promptly ignored all of those words and
yeah.
That's anyway. Sure.
And it was always a thing where the band was like pretty split 50-50 on people who wanted to do more shows and people who were like, no, it's good. It's done. And the two guys who always wanted to do more shows were super excited about the offers.
Yeah.
The other guy that was always a no, was just like, well, I do it now.
Oh,
so that left me.
So was it? I don't want you to name names, but was it Tim?
No.
Okay.
No, like Tim and Dave Arellen always wanted to do a little bit more, and I think there was a lot of unfinished business, lack of closure stuff with
Sure.
how the band ended. I was already playing in other bands. Dave had Minus the Bear.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think-
yeah.
so I
Yeah,
think
actually, we played with Minus the Bear. Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah. so I think there was like I think people half the band was just like not ready to stop performing, and the other half found other outlets to do it. So when it came to 2022, I was the only person doing bands. So I think all of a sudden there's 3/4 of the people were like, it'd be fun to
do this
do these shows again. And I think I had just done the Snakes reunion.
Right.
And
that's right. Yeah.
the Snakes reunion for me was the same thing where it's like, well, I didn't like the way that band ended, and I felt like there wasn't closure. And so it was like, for me, it was really satisfying to do those shows. And it felt like, okay, now the band's done. Like now it's,
you've closed the book on it and feel good about it.
Yeah. Our last show wasn't a show at the Vera Project where none of our friends were there, and all of our gear broke, and like people were dealing with drug issues and were like basically checked out, and like it was just like a bad ending. So like now it's
like all your friends are like, oh, let me know when you play again.
Yeah.
It's like
So it turned into one of those things where it's like, well, I can't. I know, knowing how much that meant to me, it felt bad depriving it to the other guys, and it just worked out where it's like, okay, well, it's gonna happen. This is the time to do it because the records are coming out. Sumac is taking a break from touring this year. Circles are at the tail end of an album cycle, so we're not as busy. And
so there's a window. There's a window where cool
a window.
stuff can happen. And like it's like 20 years on too. So any like bad blood or sort of tension.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, that was like it's COVID has a way of putting things in perspective too, of just like what's important. And it's amazing because it's one of the few times that I've seen with the Botch stuff specifically, just like I've seen people come alive that just don't seem to like anything anymore. And it was nice to see them excited for something. It's like, oh, awesome. I mean, I was excited too, but I'm excited about stuff all the time. Like I'm some kind of brand property opposition. Well,
I mean, that's like one of the tricky things with reunion stuff for me is that I'm being raised on like a Minor Threat and Dead Kennedys and things like that, where there's always this very adamant no reunion policy. And coming into those bands also like after they were already gone.
Yes.
I think I was personally very okay with the idea of like, bands exist in a certain time and place. And then if you miss it, that's too bad. Or if you're born in the wrong time, that's too bad. But like, there's something exciting going on in your world now that you can latch onto. So why don't
that is just as vital. Yeah.
So why don't you find that, and that'll be your special thing, and quit worrying about the special thing from the past. But
my thing is Drive Like Jehu. I got into them 2 months after they broke up.
Yeah.
And I was like, and they're from San Diego. It wasn't even that far away, but it was it was different times, man. So the fact that I got to see them play at all was like huge.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other side of the coin of that for me is just like, well, yeah, but you, meaning me, like, love Dead Kennedys, love Minor Threat, love all these, first generation American hardcore bands that broke up when I was 7 years old or whatever. But their music was still meaningful to me. And even as like a 40 something guy, I'm still finding, I'm just now like getting into Judas Priest,
Oh God. Yeah. Oh, old Judas Priest is freaking.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And it's just like,
even like Painkiller, where he sounds like a witch. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's a great song, man.
It's ferocious.
It's so good.
So it's, or like, I'm lucky that I got to see Dead Moon back in the day, but I didn't really get into Dead Moon until the last couple of years. And so I'm glad I got to see them. I wish I had seen them, at a point in time where I was a big fan.
Right.
So it's just, as someone that like really values the fact that music can have a longer shelf life than just the duration of the band being a functional live entity, it feels like weird to then have a very adamant stance against bands doing reunions, I guess, or bringing their old music into the modern age. If it's like there's still an audience for it and there's still an interest in it, it could be a gross cash grab, but it can also
Yeah.
be a cool thing to do for people that are still passionate about something you did 20 years ago.
So a celebration of community. I mean, that's it's like Scene Unwound is amazing. It's so fantastic to see them and have a whole new generation of people that never got to see them in the first place rock it, and Jared's like the only one that could do. I mean, it's like it's hard for me because it's like, well, Vern was a personal friend, and like obviously that's always going to be weird. But they also were my favorite band years before that ever happened, and I was lucky enough I saw them like 9 times or something. But like there's kids that like I listen to this band weekly, and like I can't believe I'm getting to see them play these songs live. And it's like you see them play, and it's like this is just a celebration of what this music means to people, and you're gonna get mad at that,
Yeah, I mean, and I get it because I can be a salty, cynical person where it's just like,
Sure.
why is that band reuniting? Like, fuck that, like all the time.
Sure, yeah.
But
Never.
But like Unwound, I was so excited to see that happen, and like, especially knowing that, like, I mean, Vern was a troubled person, and Vern's the reason the band didn't continue on. And to have someone like Jared, was there and a part of that culture and community, step in to like play those bass lines, it's like I don't think there would be a better.
There's no one else that
scenario. Yeah.
There's no one. I mean, like it's perfect, and I absolutely agree. And it's again, it's taken. It's so hard not to name names about bands that like they're not doing it like X, but I don't want not the band X. I mean, like insert band name there. But there are bands that I think of where it's don't do it like that. Please don't do it like that. And they're not. Like it's really cool, and it's special for the people that it's special for. So in that same way, there's a bunch of people that again I rarely see get excited about anything that was like new Botch stuff. What crazy? And they were like it's like suddenly they're transported back like 20 years ago or something, and like excited about stuff again. It's like you haven't bought a new record in 6 years,
Yeah.
But like if you paid attention to what anything new, no, okay, just like this. Okay, fine. But it's then there's also a whole new generation of kids where it's like there's a new. It's so you've invoked Minor Threat, right? There's a 15-year-old kid that's discovering Minor Threat right now. And there will be until the end of time, or whatever. You know what I mean?
For the next 50 years. Which the Earth's not going to last another 50 years, so it's until the end of time. Like that tracks.
And I feel for a certain type of a music fan that there's going to be someone who discovers Botch and gets super into it. So the idea of there being like, not just a sustainable celebration of the music and community, but also with like a through line for like even down to like the bands you're playing with of like, no, well, this isn't just like a museum exhibit. Like there's other stuff involved. I thought it was very well done. And it was,
thanks.
It provided a lot of excitement for people that needed something good to happen.
No, it's kind of true. It's,
And the first thing I thought of is like, where does Brian have the time?
Yeah,
because it's not like you're just like sitting around like twiddling your thumbs or nothing. Like you're pretty busy dude.
Yeah, and I mean if the plan had been like, all right, we're gonna do a world tour. When are we gonna do this world tour? It'd be like that's just not happening. But it was literally just a thing where it's everything kind of happened at the right time, and the schedule kind of opened up in a way where it's like, oh, well, I guess I can do this. Like it's
right.
It's also nice that there's career dudes in the band, who have real jobs that sort of dictate how much time away they can take. And, they're like, well, this is how much time I can take off. So that's all we can do.
It's going to limit it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So
like you're not going to be playing Poughkeepsie, you're not going to be playing Rapid City necessarily.
Yeah.
Peace.
I mean, the big thing was festivals, because like festivals are like the big cash grab that everyone does, because those pay so well, and like kind of from the get go we're like, we're just not going to do festivals because it's just like we want to play to our fans and not like try to convince strangers that we're cool.
Yeah.
So
Here's
it's
some
like,
people waiting for the Flaming Lips to play. Okay, they're gonna be really confused by what we're doing.
yeah. So that's a big part of it. And then also it's just, it's just like you don't want to go into doing a festival without like having at least a couple warm-up shows. And then so if every time you get offered a festival, you have to do 2 shows in conjunction with that and then travel and rehearse for it. It's just like it's just gonna cut into everyone's time that they have available, and we'd rather just play cool club shows, which is where we would thrive anyway. So
Sure.
just do that.
And you're playing with bands that are either still around and kicking from back in the day or again, similar through lines. You got like a Uniform and like a I think Converge playing one of them, right?
Yeah.
With Cave-In. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, could that show be any more Boston?
Yeah. I mean, that was, we're kind of adamant about trying to do like younger, like newer bands.
Mutoid Man, I notice is they're on there, right? And did the Kowloon Wall City stuff already happen, or is that coming up?
No, that's that's in December.
That's in December. Okay.
Yeah.
That's those are my old school Oakland bros.
Oh, nice.
So.
I like good people.
Good, yeah. Terrible people.
Yes.
Just the worst. No, they're fantastic folks, and just a stellar band that's only gotten better over time.
Yeah,
which is great. So yeah, I like. I don't want to dwell too much. I mean, obviously, plenty to talk about, but I think it's that mindset is so crucial that even though you're not doing it, here's our 40-date tour that we're doing. We're playing every inch of the country. It's like you're doing almost these tactical strikes that are very much like community oriented, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like too altruistic of a thing.
Sure, but yeah,
but
like,
no, but it's I mean, I think it's kind of like it's kind of a selfish thing for me in a lot of ways, because it's like, with like Boston with Converge and Cave-In, it's like, wow, it'd be nice to see the Converge and Cave-In guys. Why don't we just have them play the
and
show?
those bands rock, right? Yeah, of course, it's a good time, sure.
And then it's like, I'm friends with Scott and Ian, so it's like, why don't we just have Kowloon play? And then there's like bands like Portrayal of Guilt, where I don't know those guys, but it was just like, well, if we're in Texas, it would be cool if they played.
Yeah.
Or Primitive Man in Denver. It's like,
Primitive Man, yeah.
Like this makes it a fun night for me. So
yeah, you get to keep it enjoyable for everyone, and then there's always the possibility too that, again, like these people that haven't bought a new record in 6-7 years or whatever, maybe they'll be exposed to something new too. Yeah. Who knows? Hey, this young up and comers called Converge. You heard of these guys? Yeah. They got a future in this business. No, but seriously, like it's a notable action, and I think that it's it strikes me as just like oh, that's awesome. Like that, there's no caveats of like, like, look, I'm the first one to be like, get that paper, right on. Nothing wrong with that, man. But it's not just that.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of like a big, there's a couple turning points for me with like coming around to the idea of it. And one of it was just like, discussing the financial aspect of it. It's like, this is actually not going to be like a windfall financially. Yeah. And everyone was just kind of just like, yeah, that's not why we're doing it. It's like, I was the only one thinking about money. Okay. Not that was my motivation, but I'm the only one thinking about that.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You make a living off music, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's, like I had people in the past that were just like, I mean, you could do a Botch reunion and then just donate all the money so you don't feel bad about it. And it's like, how much work it would take to like actually put on a good Botch show, and how much like money, like, just renting a practice space and getting a backline. I don't have a backline in Seattle. So it's like just all that. And then just be like, and then I'll just eat the cost.
Like, flying people around and freaking, oh my God. Yeah.
It's like, I get to play in bands all the time. I don't need to like incur debt to put on a show for other people when I get to like play shows all the time and enjoy that. So
there is a lot of, so this goes back to the earlier conversation we were having where it was, the transparency of just people's regular lives being opened up as part of the art now, like the logistics of being in a band that isn't just, oh, we're, the Monkees and we all live in the same house and we practice and whatever, like never comes into the picture when people think about these kinds of things, where it's like, no, like these are like, 20 plus year old songs. Mm-hmm. Nobody has been doing this like on a regular basis. You got to you want it to be good, I want to imagine. So you're going to have to spend time doing it, time away from like other things. Some people have day jobs. I mean, there's so many logistical concerns. It's like, oh yeah, just donate the money. It's like,
yeah. It's like,
my God,
in order to donate the money, I would have to be rich to begin with.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Oh yeah, I'll pull from the trust fund. Sure.
Yeah. Unless you want just a really half-assed show, in which case no one wants the half-assed show. Everyone wants like it to be like some magical thing, and it's like making it even halfway decent. Yeah, it's going to require a lot of work. So yeah, but you get that. So,
oh, absolutely. No, and it's not lost on someone like me, but whatever. I'm not necessarily the one chiming in the comments either. So
yeah,
except for to ask you on the show, which great success.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Snakes comeback, and I think that's related, but like not related at the same time. And I think it's an interesting story. Not a band I expected to see anything from again.
Yeah, I mean, Snakes kind of fell apart at the end of 2009. We did, a tour, like a second North American tour in support of what wound up being our last album.
Was that the one with Big Business? Or,
no, that was earlier on. We did a couple of runs with them, but
I saw you with them a couple times.
This last one, the last one, it was like Canada with Mets, and then the actual U.S. with a Toronto band called Day Month Year.
Okay,
who are awesome, but I think maybe that was their last tour too. But yeah, and it was just, we had to rent a van because our van broke down, and it was just, one of those like things where, we were always one crisis away from just being financially devastated.
I keep thinking of that. I'm never going to recover from this financially meme. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was, just being in a van that's like barely getting over the pass from, like California, from Eastern California into San Diego, and like if we could just make it to the Casbah, like we'll have enough money to like get home. But if we don't make it over the pass, we're fucked.
So hard relatable.
Yeah. So that was our last tour, and then we made it home. Our last show was a disaster, but whatever. But then we started getting like offers for. We actually got an offer to go to Europe with Converge on a bus to like share a nightliner. And it was just one of those things where it's like, man, like we don't have the money to do this. I'm going to front the money. If we do it, we're already like trying to dig like the band out of debt. And it's just like moving forward, it's just like going to involve incurring more debt, which is all going to be under my name. And, and there was like drug and alcohol issues in the band where it's just like, these aren't people that I fully trust to like rise to the occasion when we really need things to work out. So,
you need it to be good, and you need everyone to be present for it. And
and so that's just when I was like, hey, I can't commit to things moving forward. But I want to fulfill all of our obligations, because we had a bunch of stuff on the calendar, and once that happened, everyone was just like, nope, we're just done. There's no last show. There's no fulfilling obligations. It's just done. And so it was a bummer, and
it's abrupt. It seemed really abrupt.
Yeah. And, it's, I'm by no means a perfect person, and, I pulled the rug out from underneath them. So it's only fair that, people are just like, well, we're not just going to end this your way, so it was fine. But, after 10 years and after people kind of licked their wounds a little bit and, reassessed things, I think there was always this sort of talk about trying to do final shows once everyone's heads were in the right place. And but it just got difficult because Chris moved off to Portugal and I moved to New York for a while. And then it was another kind of Botch type of thing where it all kind of wound up where we were back in Seattle. Suicide Squeeze was going to reissue a bunch of our old stuff.
That was the duct tape and something else.
Shivering Crows. Yeah. It's like,
you should have gone with duct tape and something else. It would have been a better title.
Well, it's
sorry.
I'll say this: our album titles were very reflective of our band dynamic, where they all had like alternate titles because we couldn't agree.
Yeah, well, the first one is like what Oxen Ears, and then like
the lion
does a thing with the something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So literally like two album titles, two camps, like very adamant about getting their way. So it's like, fine, it's just called two things.
Yeah. It's got this really awkward sentence title.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we had a stupid band name. Why not have stupid album titles?
Look, I actually think These Arms Are Snakes is a great band name. Now, granted, it's more than one word, so therefore it's a terrible band name because nobody can have any band name that's more than one word and have people remember it or do the drunk in a bar test. But I always liked that band name. I was like,
okay.
And when I first saw you guys, I don't know, 2000. I just remember being like, oh, what's that? These Arms Are Snakes? That's an evocative title. Oh, interesting. And you were playing with, I don't know, someone I liked. And like I was like, oh, they're a great band. Awesome. And they didn't really think that much about it. Actually, you know what? It might have been, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
I care. I want to know.
I did have Chris Conan on Protonic years ago,
Nice.
but it was with Terry when he was playing with Le Butcherettes, and it was mostly a Le Butcherettes conversation. But I think it was 100,000 years ago, too, so I couldn't even remember what we talked about, but we probably at least gave a passing mention to Snakes, which I thought was a very good band. So
yeah, nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to know that, people have a favorable memory of it because some people don't.
Maybe some people in the band didn't.
We were a very we were a polarizing band to begin with, but I think we were also a band where so much of how we operated was just like, is it going to fall apart at any second?
Right. That's
the live show.
It had that vibe to it too. Like, this feels like this could fly apart like a machine that's going too fast at any moment in time.
Yeah. Sometimes it did.
Which I was like,
a lot of times it did.
Which I was like, I don't know if this is an affectation or what. And then like learning more about it, I was like, oh well, maybe sometimes maybe it was, but maybe also maybe not.
I mean, that was literally where the duct tape thing from the title came by.
Right.
It's just like everything's just held together by duct tape, and you just cross your fingers and hope that it holds up.
Yeah, and I think that it's but then that's another one that's like been remembered well by time, and there's a whole bunch of people that like, oh, this band's great. What's their deal? I'm like, well, they fucking broke up years ago, dude. I don't know, like where you've been. But okay, so tell me more about Snakes coming back together, though. Like, that's interesting.
No, but I think that was I can't remember what Chris was doing at the time. He was in El Paso. I think he was working for Omar from Mars Volta and at the drive-in, and like was kind of like his in-house engineer for all those solo records.
Yeah. He's got that whole setup down there. Yeah.
And I think that was just kind of like coming to a close, and with COVID, I think Numos was just trying to figure out how to, you can't, like, when the restrictions were just starting to lift with COVID, you couldn't get touring bands because no band was going to book a tour, like, if everything could fall apart at one moment. So I think clubs like Numos in Seattle were just like, well, what can we do that's special and different that'll get people to
leave the house?
Risk their lives, risk their health, to get together in a room with poor ventilation.
We need to hook them. What are we going to hook them with?
And apparently they were like, well, it doesn't seem like these Arms Are Snakes fans really care about their personal health, so we'll just see if they'll reunite.
They have a flagrant disregard for safety. Sure.
So they put in an offer, and it was kind of one of those things where I think we were all really excited to do it, and it was like, I don't know. I think one thing that I really missed over the last 10 years is band practice, because
regular like communal aspect of playing music with people in a room. Yes.
Yeah, like meeting up with your buds 2 or 3 times a week.
Yes.
You know, having a couple beers and running through the set or working on new songs. Like
maybe you accomplish something, maybe you don't, but you're
but you're hanging out with your friends, and like I haven't had that in 10 years because Russian Circles are based out of Chicago. So it's, if we're doing anything, it's like we show up a week before the thing we're doing and we work and we work and we work. And it's the same thing with Sumac. So it's like, it was nice just to be able to hang out with old friends and you know, do that whole thing and
get that social aspect of it. As well, which is, that's interesting, because that is definitely a thing that, as people have the ability to do things, it decreases as your responsibilities increase. You know, people have like spouses and responsibilities and pets and kids and, you know, like whatever. It's a whole scenario. But by the same token, there is. Just the aspect of playing with someone in a room, and I do absolutely want to get into Russian Circles and Sumac both, but like there is something different about writing stuff with people in the room versus sending stuff back and forth and like, all right, here's the Dropbox link to this new thing, you know, here's okay, that's cool, you know, like whatever, maybe we can do this here. Like I there's no right or wrong way to do it, but it is very different.
Well, it's kind of funny because I was talking with my buddy Casey, who plays in a band here called Caustic Wound, and we were just talking about like the writing process of bands, and it never occurred to me that it was a strange thing. But with Botch, we didn't typically show up to practice with parts, you know, or maybe there's like 1 or 2 parts, but like really it was just jamming, and it was just
you
like
grounded out in the room. Yeah.
And you just tried to like capture lightning in a bottle, and you know, you would jam for 10 minutes and then hope that like you landed on something that was exciting and that you could retain it and replicate it and still be excited about it.
If you can't remember it, it's no good, is what we used to say in
yeah. And I mean, it was kind of similar with Snakes, where it was like, you know, most of the material was like I would come in with 2 or 3 parts that kind of work together, and we would just jam on it until it felt like something. But more and more now with like Russian Circles and Sumac, because it's not a bunch of people hanging out in a room together, it's like people submitting songs and being like,
what do you think about this?
Do something with this. And that style of writing has its own strengths and value, but you know, it's interesting to revert back to a type of music where it's like, oh no, this was just like a bunch of dudes literally like hammering out noise in a room until something clicked, and
sabotaging each other's ideas until you have a song, as Steve Albini said.
Well, we did Sumac did a couple collaborative records with Keiji Haino, this Japanese improv musician, and he confided with us after our first show together that he like set traps for us, where he's like, you know, I was the outsider, like you guys already have like a spoken, you already have your own like telepathic. He's like, so it's my job to come in and just like disrupt it constantly. And I was
nice.
Like, oh, okay. You are a little saboteur. Okay. That's a weird approach, but I also kind of like the mischievous aspect of it. So
it's an aesthetic decision, to be sure. Yeah.
Like, well played. It's like, that's why you were playing that weird thing when we were all jamming. Okay. All right.
Okay. Choosing chaos. All right. Fair enough. Well, and that's, but again, it's what works for one band isn't necessarily going to work for another band too. And but I also think that there is a tendency to gravitate towards the clinical when you're like just looking at waveforms and file. Oh, yes, well, this is very, whereas we have that sort of like the drums are hitting and like, oh, there's this riff and it's like you're feeling it, like you're literally feeling it in the same room. It almost requires like a little bit of imagination to be like, oh yeah, that'll be good when that's
cleaned up. Yeah.
Like it's almost an academic thing, right? I mean, so is it just because you've I mean, obviously you've done this a lot. Everybody's like you know, an old hand at working in this manner or capacity, but like, does it ever kind of you have to stretch the imagination a little further than maybe you feel comfortable with?
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, with Circles, I think it actually got easier when we wrote our last record because it was all during COVID and we all like bunkered down and just got Logic and learned how to write,
How to do it.
That way. And I think we dabbled with swapping files in the past, but it always kind of reverted back to that, like, well, we'll figure this out when we're all actually in a studio together or in the practice space, and we'll, hammer it out and do it the old school way. And, doing it now where it's like, no, I have a complete vision for this song. Here's the complete vision. Please, embellish on my vision, was a new thing and kind of refreshing just because maybe because it was new. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because, when you're isolated at home and you immerse yourself in this imagination world that you build, you don't want to then dismantle it with your friends. You just want to like see the vision through.
I would like to see the vision. Yeah, exactly. I would like to see the oil painting of this, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then like also, I mean, with Circles, like, I mean, that's like what, eighth record, like something like that. I mean, the first one was Riddle Seal guy.
The first one had Colin.
Colin on Colin
on bass. Yeah, and Dave was in Riddle Steel. He's still the drummer guy, but Colin was in Dakota with Mike.
That's right. Okay, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm long time, man. but like you were, what I was driving at is with the first one, you were kind of coming into like something that was more or less built, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that's a long time ago now at this point, but that in and of itself was an initial adjustment, and then you have all like these epochs of time where like there's other bands or other things that are happening, and it seems like Russian Circles has been pretty consistent as far as like there's something new every couple of years. There's always time for new awesome Russian Circles stuff.
Yeah, we try to keep busy, and the band is our livelihood at this point, and we try to respect that, as far as valuing the fact that we get to do this thing and taking it seriously, and while also not completely burning ourselves out and exhausting people on it. So there's a little bit of a tightrope walk, figuring out how much touring and things to do at this point.
It feels like there's a good balance between sort of circling back around with your people and then also kind of pushing out towards other folks that, hey, maybe they'll be like, I remember the one that stuck out to me was the Deaf Heaven. The Deaf Heaven tour, it was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I can see where like they'll be into Russian Circles after after they see them. Like it makes sense to like a lot of their, maybe not all of them, but like enough of them, and that's there's something to be said for that versus also just like, oh, we're playing to our people, like we're playing to our crowd, right?
Yeah. It's tough, because you see a band like the Melvins and it's like, man, you're going to see the Melvins every year. At this point, which is great because it's a thing you can rely on, and they're such a creative force, and they just are constantly evolving and reinventing themselves, but also open to like revisiting the past. And like,
yes,
anytime you see them, you have no idea what you're going to get anytime you see them, which is part of what makes them a band that can do that tour every year
and keep it sustainable, because it's not always going to be exactly the same, know, and it's going to be, and then like, oh, we didn't hear that one for like a few tours. Oh, they brought that one. Oh, cool. That one's back. Oh, there's this awesome new song.
Yeah.
But then like there's playing to your people, right? And doing that kind of thing, which obviously you guys do, but like, like how is it with like Korn? That's what I was building up to.
Okay. Now I see. Okay. Now I see where you're going with that.
Mm-hmm.
That was, it's tough because I am someone who I didn't grow up loving Motley Crue and Rolling Stones and shit like that. I grew up loving fucking like random hardcore bands and, like the best shows I saw as a teenager were like in basements and community centers and stuff. So like at a certain point, you are in a band that does better than that. And I shouldn't say better, but like draws more than that. And you have to kind of look around and like, what do we do now? Like, what do we,
right. Yeah.
like,
yeah.
who are our role models that we live up to? And,
Yeah.
you know, it's tough because you only want to tour with bands that you're super passionate about, but like, there's not a lot of big bands I'm passionate about in general, or if there are, it's just like, you know, yeah, I love Wilco, but I don't want to tour.
But then there's
Wilco.
crazy things like REM took the Minutemen out, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and it was like,
that's
okay,
true.
well, that happened. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
weirder things happen. But I know what you're saying, where it's like, if you're ensconced in this underground, for whatever that means in 2023 world, most of the bands that you love are probably going to be like at or around the same level, because there just isn't like that pop world, the world of like the Grammys and whatnot. Like, it's just like so far afield of like anything that comes from punk rock normally.
Yeah.
That's like at that level. Who is there? I don't know. Queens of Stone Age, I guess. I mean, like,
Yeah, I mean, and it's, you know, we were lucky.
Tool?
We got, yeah, I mean, and we were lucky we got to do like a year with Mastodon, and Mastodon is like one of those like few bands that are like, wow, we toured with them when they had the #1 album in the country, which is bizarre that that's even a thing, but like we, you know, are fans of the band, so it was very cool to get to do that. So, you know, with things like getting offered a System of a Down, Korn tour, it becomes like a different scenario. For us, the initial offer that came in was 2 days in LA with System of a Down, Korn, Faith No More, Helmet, and us opening. And it was just a weird thing where we didn't submit for it. We didn't, you know, we weren't in any way affiliated with any of those bands or their management or their labels. Or it was just some weird offer that came in, and it was, you know, a pretty good guarantee for playing a 30-minute set. And we all grew up listening to Helmet and Faith No More.
Yeah.
So
someone
we were
asks
like,
you if you're a god, you say yes.
yeah,
yes.
Like so we wanted to go see Faith No More and Helmet. And,
Hell yeah.
And then it turned into like a little tour, and then Faith No More had to cancel for some personal health reasons, and it was just kind of like, and then Helmet wound up only being on one of the shows, and it was just kind of like, oh, like we're suddenly on a new metal tour.
Suddenly we're the non-new metal band on this bill. Yeah.
This is weird. And you know, like I think there's also just a general thing now where rock music just isn't a part of the cultural mainstream the way it used to be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And just the fact that there's guitars and like amps on stage is kind of like, oh, like this is like an authentic thing now, even though like back in 2001, it was just kind of like, what is this stuff? So
can I tell you, one of the first shows back for my band, Wisconsin State Fair with Hank Williams Jr. and like a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Point of fact, we got thanked for being a rock band, which is the first time that I've in my entire life that's ever happened. But like, I was like, why are they thanking? What? But then I was like, I thought about it. I thought like with the other acts, and like, oh yeah, but this like Backstreet Boys and stuff like are playing this. Like this is like not.
Yeah.
Like I have my world, and this is like not my world, and like, oh okay, cool, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, we just watched. My husband and I just watched the Milli Vanilli documentary last night.
Oh,
you know,
how is that? How is that?
It's good. It's fun. It's
Okay.
a fun watch. But it was just like
I almost pulled the trigger the other night, but I watched the Tad documentary either, which for some reason I never had watched.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's on Night
Okay.
Flight,
Okay.
and yeah, it was great. And I wish I had known it existed before I had Tad on. But anyway, whatever. I still did pretty well.
I mean, it's a good documentary, and it's, you know, sort of the classic revisiting it, re-examining it, like who is the real victim here,
Right.
And you feel bad for Milli Vanilli because it's basically like they're this entertainment dance duo from Germany who, got approached by a producer who's like, sign this contract, we're going to make you pop stars. And
Yeah.
And then we're basically told, oh, but you're not singing on the record. And so
Right.
they kind of had to they were like, what? Like, but we wanted to be singers.
It's not like they had some grand master plan to have this happen or something. We'll fool everybody. Check this out.
And then, they like blew up, and then it became exposed that they lip synced, and then everyone hated Milli Vanilli, and then everyone just kind of shrugged at the record label and the producer. And it's just like, yeah, that sucks. Like, you didn't make that decision. Like, the industry made that decision.
Yeah.
And now you are the ones that are forever vilified and like have your names tarnished. So like that whole aspect of it's really shitty. But there's an aspect of the documentary where, they're like, it's such a shame Milli Vanilli weren't respected as artists. And it's kind of just like, but like Milli Vanilli, it wasn't even their name. Like the producer came up with the name.
Right.
The producer wrote all the songs.
Yeah.
Other people performed it. Like they didn't have anything. Nothing was taken away from them except their like credibility as people, which is awful. Yeah. And I feel bad for them, but it's like, you're not someone who like wrote a bunch of material and then had someone, a record label, like sees all of it and you don't have any rights to it anymore. It's like, no, like none of this was yours to begin with. Then you're not even Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli is the producer and the backing band. So like you didn't really have that taken away from you.
It's the whole entire thing was a construct. It wasn't like there was, like it's not like there were some ferocious, creatively, fiercely independent artists who happened to be
with their own career and their own like message and all that. It's like, no, you were like good looking dancers.
Yeah, they're not Sparks. Let's get real.
Yeah. But it's also just like fascinating to watch it and just seeing like the amount of outrage that exists for it, where it's just like, it was only a few years later where Fisher Spinner's like, yeah, we lip sync. Like this is just a performance.
Whatever.
Like, there's no live vocals. This is all just an art spectacle thing. And people are like, oh, okay.
Look Howard Dean in 2004, like forever made a, like the punchline of a joke because of like yelling, and then like, okay, then like really that was the thing. Like that's like your average
bizarre
campaign for certain people. I'm gonna stop right there.
Yeah.
But like, that standards change and people get caught up in the in the wake of like whatever this like bizarre group judgment.
Yeah. I mean,
but then people try to apply like popularity. If you're popular, people try to apply artistic sensibilities to it after the fact. Well, you got to admit that they're great musicians. Look, nobody said they weren't great musicians. Did I say that? No. I'm saying it's creatively bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
And I people always make excuses for things that are popular too. And that's something, even in like the world of punk rock, people will do it. And then I'll be like, well, hold on. Like, why are you giving them unearned credit? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you know? Are you in the room when they're like writing these tunes? Oh no, but, and then it comes back to like, oh, I really like that record in high school. Okay, well, cool. But that doesn't mean like they should retroactively be given credit as some like uncompromising art thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, with the, playing with new metal bands, it's always a weird thing where it's like, well, now like in 2021 or 20, whatever those dates were, it's just like this seems like I have a lot more respect for it now, weirdly, than I did back in 1997. But
if I may say, from the outside, it seemed like a Mr. Show skit or something. Like, oh, we're going to get to play with, Helmet and Faith No More. Great, we're in. Oh, and Korn's playing. Oh, that's weird. Okay, and System of a Down. Oh, that's strange. Oh, yeah, and now Faith No More and Helmet are not playing, and it's a whole tour. I'm like, what?
I mean, that's pretty much what it was. But you know what? But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's just like, it took us like 30 seconds to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, do you want to do this? It's like, yeah, it's like, when are we going to play an arena ever again? And there was a moment on that tour where, after the second show, we were robbed. We had a bunch of our stuff stolen.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And we cobbled together a back line from friends. We got to the next show. The drummer of System of a Down brought Dave into his dressing room, and it's just like, what can we do? What can we do to help? And Dave's like, well, we go on in 5 minutes, so I think we're okay. But thank you. That's like awesome that you're looking out for us and all that. And then he kind of was just like,
that's like that's a Trump supporter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
just checking. So.
Yeah. So it's an intense conversation, but a part of it was he was like, we were robbed too. It sucks. We know how bad this is. And then kind of started talking to Dave about like what we could do to get to the next level. Like kind of like, we've been there. Here's what we did. Here's what you guys need to do to get to the next level. And Dave's just like, oh, like we're not looking to be. We draw 500 to 1,000 people in a major market, and we're good with that. Like,
that's not our bag, baby.
Yeah, we go to the grocery store. And no one knows who we are. Like no tabloids write about us. We can just do our thing. People show up. People still like buy physical records for us. It's amazing.
You can do it till the end of time if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, it might all go away tomorrow. Who knows? But like we're good and we're happy with where we're at. And he was just like, oh, that's really cool. All right, like carry on then. And it's like, okay, all right,
carry on. Yeah, well, because a lot of times for folks that are in in the music business at that level, they can't conceive of being okay with having something that's like sustainably.
Yeah,
not struggling, but a sustainable working band. Like that's like this is the reward. Like the journey is the destination here. Like we're like we're able to do what we want to do. We make exactly the kind of records we want to make. We never compromise. We don't have to write any hits for anybody.
Yeah, we're excited when we see each other. Like, we're not sick of each other. We don't have like articles and. Metal Injection talking about how we hate each other.
Well, I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Like it's like, I mean, between the singer, like, I mean, do they just never talk about politics ever? Because can you only imagine? I mean, or tell me. Actually, you were there. I mean, do they? Are they just like all about the music or what?
There's just not any interaction at that level between us and System of a Down. Which,
but then there's separate areas of the arena.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think there was a lot of interaction between those guys. I don't think they hung out, and when you're in an arena, there's like 30 dressing rooms, so we get one.
And then they each have each member has their own and their entourage and whatever.
Yeah,
wow.
But again, it's all things where it's just like. You could talk to other people in the band and they'd be like, yeah, that was a tough tour. For me, I loved it because it was just like.
Well, when else are you going to be doing that? It's a window into a different world.
It's a total, it's just a thing you get to experience. And, we went into it being like, we're playing a 10,000 person arena. Maybe there'll be 1,000 people when we perform.
Yeah.
Who cares? If they don't like it, who cares? They're not our fans.
It doesn't matter. They still have to sit through it anyway.
Don't care. We're like, we'll just play loud songs so we can't hear any booing. Well, it'll be fine. And it was super fun and weird. And I got zero regrets. Even if getting robbed, zero regrets. So.
And there's always the possibility, and a lot of people ensconced in the punk rock, indie rock world or whatever may not want to admit it, but there's people that like you can make some converts. Like, look, just because they're there, like. For Korn and System of a Down, you're sitting there being judgmental at them. Like, it doesn't mean that they're like, knuckleheads necessarily.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's one thing.
Knucklehead adjacent, maybe. I don't know.
That's one thing I do want to like clarify because I don't want to like talk shit about either of those bands.
No.
Both those bands like they were very like we didn't interact with them hardly at all, but any interaction we did have was super positive.
Yeah,
their crew were super helpful. They we're very
professional and nice,
and sympathetic to our plight when we got robbed. So nothing negative to say about them. I'm just someone that was, a snobby hardcore kid when all that music blew up. And so it just wasn't relevant to me. But I have tons of friends that are snobby hardcore kids that are 10 years younger than me that were deeply impacted by that music.
That they like that band, and that band
Yeah.
was like,
And
yes.
and I liked, I liked a ton of ska-core because I was, born in 1977. So when
I was gonna say we're about the same
Yeah.
age, and but I remember nu metal was the enemy when it came out. It's like, no, this
Yeah.
is like everything I'm against. Like this is, and like I was completely unaccepting of it. I mean, I guess to some degree still am. Not that anyone was asking, but then you got kids on the come up that we're playing with who are just like, oh, they love it. They love early Korn.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
no, I mean, like our sound guy,
okay.
our sound guy for Russian Circles was born the year that Botch started. So he's like younger, and he's like, oh yeah, like Korn rules. Like, and this is a guy that loves like good music and is in a killer band.
Yeah.
He's like, but yeah, like Korn was like the gateway drug. Like that's what, like, you heard that and then you dug deeper and then you started getting into the cool stuff. And it's no different than like what Green Day was for people that were a little younger than me. And it's no different than what, I don't know. I don't know what my embarrassing thing was, but I'll again, I liked ska-core.
Ska-core was, I mean, dude, I had a Voodoo Glow Skulls tape. I had, Mighty Mighty Boss. I had all that stuff. I mean, I honestly, I probably still do. I've never gotten rid of any of those cassettes. But in that same way, like I remember hearing, like, I think it was Korn's first tape, and I was like, like I just was sort of like, I don't know. And then like it was everywhere. Because for me, it was sold as like, oh, here's a band from Bakersfield. I'm like, there's a band from Bakersfield?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't wait to hear that, being from the Central Valley myself.
So the first time I ever heard about Korn, it was 1994, maybe 95. It's my senior year of high school, and Sick of It All was playing in Seattle, and it was like Sick of It All, Orange 9mm, a band that called Headline. That
9mm, yeah, wow.
Yeah, this band called Headline that turned into Trial, and then Korn was like somewhere in the middle of that bill,
in
like
the mix, yeah.
So it was like all these hardcore bands and then Korn, and like Korn went on, and everyone was just like, "The fuck is this?" Like, just like it did not go over well at all.
Yeah,
but they were handing out singles, like promotional singles in the lobby of the theater where the show happened. So we all wound up with like these Korn singles for the song "Blind."
Right.
And because it was the 90s and you don't have the internet and the infinite access to all the music out there, it's just like, well, yeah, like we listened to the Korn Blind single because you put it on like on the drive to high school, and even
that's how I heard Power Man 5000, by the way. Same thing. I'm like, all right, Power Man 5000. Sure. What is this?
And even if you're like, this is fucking ridiculous, you still listen to it like 20 times and you're just like, are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm fucking ready, man. I'm fucking ready.
Yeah.
And every night,
it's a call to action, and songs with a call to action are always entertaining. Yeah.
Oh, dude. And they played that song every night on that tour. And like when the "Are You Ready" came out, there was like a big confetti cannon. And it's like, oh shit!
Oh man!
I'm not ready. I got to get ready right now.
Wait! Stop the confetti cannon! No,
I got to go see the confetti cannon. And you run out, and it's like, all right, I'm good. I caught the confetti song, so it's I mean, I don't know. It brought me joy. So
and to Korn's credit, too, they're much better than those that they Roth. You know, like the bands that kind of came from nu metal like after Korn were like. I mean, it's for me, it's ear cancer, peace and love, but you know. Not for me. And you know what? That's the feeling's probably mutual if they knew it existed. But like, you know, I get at least I get what people get out of it, and like, I think there's a bunch of dudes at Amrit shirts who like love yelling at chat pile about liking Korn, and it's like you're only gonna make them like rep them harder. Like they don't care, man.
Yeah, it's
let people like what they like. It's fine.
I mean,
Hot Snakes were the antidote to nu metal, and that's what I always remember because people were like, "I love Hot Snakes and whatever Evanescence." I'm like, "Okay, that
really."
Actually, I don't know anyone who's ever said that. Never mind.
I was like, "Wow, this is different life experience here." But.
Yeah, that never happened. I just made that up, I guess. Okay. But Hot Snakes was like, I remember it was like, oh, John and Rick from Jehu have a band that kind of sounds like the Wipers that like is sort of like they're all pissed off about all these new metal bands, and it's great. And it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And it was.
I'm in.
But getting back to like playing these big shows, like you still have the ability to sort of show people something they haven't heard too. Like, because they're not coming in knowing like your discography. Like, who the fuck are these guys?
Yeah. No, I mean that's. I mean,
why are they in the way of me hearing if we're ready or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, that's the other tricky thing, because it's, you know, you always want to tour with like these bands that are super, you know, that you completely see eye to eye with, and like, these are my people, like this is my tribe, and like you can do that, but a lot of times you don't wind up growing, which is maybe fine, because, you know, I don't want to buy into this capitalist model of like the band always has to be bigger and bigger.
Constant growth. Sure. Yeah.
But you have to understand that like your fan base will eventually, like, you need to regenerate it. Maybe is the best way to put it, where it's like, you're not going to keep having the same 500 people come out to see the same 10 songs every night. So it's like, you need to like evolve as a band and like continue to like push yourselves just to stay interesting. And then part of that is also just like exposing yourself to new people. And it's fucking fun.
It's nice to play for new people.
It's fucking really fun to like do a headline show where it's all people you know are really excited.
Yeah.
But it's also really fucking fun to play to people that you know are just like, what the fuck is
what's this all about? Yeah, what's this deal?
Like that's and you kind of need both, because it's like if you're only playing to people that are like alienated by your music, it's completely deflating.
Right.
But if you only play to like the people who are already fans, there's a ton of pressure to give them exactly what they want.
Yes.
And to like meet their needs and their demands and make sure it's better than the last time. And it's like, you know, sometimes it's just fun to like go out and be like, if people don't like it, don't fucking care.
Yeah, go pound sand.
Don't fucking care. If you do like it, awesome.
Great.
Come
Welcome aboard. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I'm a big Children of Men. I love that movie. And I always say like, you don't want your audience to be like the Children of Men of rock audiences.
Yeah. No,
where there's no new blood, right?
Dude, that's a perfect analogy. Yes, exactly.
So it seems like that's it's an opportunity, and it's also an opportunity to like, look, not everyone is born cool. You know, like maybe all you ever knew, maybe the wildest thing you ever heard was System of a Down, and then you're like, oh, what's this? The Circles band, what's their deal? Okay.
Yeah.
What's their whole thing? I don't know. It's just interesting though. You know, I'll buy the record and I'll hate listen to it, and then like I'll really listen to it. You know. Yeah.
No, it's. I mean, Snakes famously, or not famously, but like it's been discussed a lot over the years. Did a tour with Under Oath, and it was the same thing where it's just like, like everyone in the band's like, are we actually gonna do this? Like, I guess we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
But the whole rationale just being like, if people are drawn to Under Oath because they think there's a sense of like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just assume everyone listens to like heavy music because there's a sense of danger to it or excitement. You know, it's like extreme. So there's like something adrenalizing about it. So people are going to see a band like Under Oath being like, oh, wow, I this is so intense. It's like, wait till they see a bunch of like really drunk, ugly dudes on stage, just like barely getting through their songs. Like that's really gonna feel dangerous. So yeah, it's So we did a tour with Under Oath just because it was like, like if people don't like it, fuck them. If people do have their curiosity piqued, then they can buy an album, and maybe that will lead to something cooler. And to this day, there's still people who are like, the first time I ever saw you was Under Oath. I had no idea what the fuck that was. And
right. Totally.
So,
well, and there's something to be said too for being in a situation where, look, it's great playing with bands that like inspire you and like they're your favorite bands and your favorite people and blah, 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 blah. But it's also like, they're cool people, like they're being professional, and like everyone gets to like be somewhat like comfortable and like also play to new people. Great. I mean, I feel like the trap of constant growth is an alluring one, but I think if you're not going outside your comfort zone, that's
bad. Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And I've known, I gotta be real careful about what I say. I know bands that like have turned down stuff. I'm like, why did you turn that down?
Yeah.
Oh, well, reason X, Y, Z, and I'm like, "Ugh, you would have killed on that. Like you would have come away with like 1,000 new like for life fans like after doing that like 3-week tour.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, I get it because you want to be. I mean, there's definitely like things I regret. I'll say it. I regret doing the Under Oath tour. Like, I wish we hadn't done that tour. Because,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I guess, we made some new fans and that's cool. But like the amount of just, I don't know. I just felt like it was a deflating tour. And I think we thought we were going to be more polarizing. And instead it was just kind of like these like doe-eyed stares, just like,
you're just in the way of their favorite band.
Yeah. People like looking at their watch, just like, I don't know what this is, but like, I don't like it, So, but I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, because you're in that case, you're taking the risk, right? Because you like to think you're doing some converting. You're converting people to your brand of weirdness, and then like how? So when you realize that, like when you realize, oh, this isn't working like how I thought to. Is it like what, first show, the first night, or is it like take a while? Like,
yeah, it's like a slow realization where it's like, I thought this was going to be more like people were whipping bottles at us, and it's like, yeah, fuck you, like we're getting through it, but it's like, oh no, it's just like really polite suburban kids and
polite indifference.
Yeah, just
that's the worst. It's the worst.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's right. You're not actually like rebellious, rowdy kids. You're like.
It'd be better if you were pissed.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing there was again, I'm not gonna say who it is, but somebody was just like sitting there and just aggressively flipping off the band in question the entire set. Where I'm like, I can't imagine ever being that angry at literally anything anymore. But like they were angry. Yeah. And it was like, that's a great reaction. Are you fucking kidding me? That's awesome.
I can't imagine being that angry and sticking around. It's just like, if you hate it this much,
just leave.
Like, you're going to have to pee at some point. Go pee now. Like, you're going to stay in here the whole night? Like,
yeah, no, I got my spot. I'm ready for the band I'm here to see. And I'm just going to aggressively flip off the opening band the entire time. All right.
But I do remember what my initial point was. And my initial point was, I remember reading a David Berman interview when Silver Jews came back, and he's like, no one will ever know how many things I've said no to. It's like you can say no to all these things and like feel really good about yourself. It's like, I turned that down. And it doesn't ultimately matter because it doesn't really, you're not making a statement to anyone except the person you're saying no to. And the person you're saying no to is probably just like, okay, next on the list then is, what sounds kind of like Silver Jews. And so it's just like,
right. Yeah.
Which isn't to say like, don't have any standards for yourself or just do whatever. Cause it doesn't matter obviously, but like, there's so many things like, again, like a reunion tour, where it's like, I can feel really good about saying no to this over and over again. But at a certain point, I'm actually just feeling like an asshole who's just like being contrarian. And it's just like, why not just fucking go out and make some people happy, Like music is such a selfish thing in so many ways, where it's like, I think about like the first Botch European tour where it was like 20 people at a show every night. And you're just like, someone set up this whole tour and figured this all out for us to just have us play to 20 people. And it's great because I get to go to Europe and I get to experience all these cool things.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I feel like the mountain climber that's like riding on the back of the Sherpa up Mount Everest or something. It's like other people are doing the hard work.
They're doing the hard work. Yeah.
And so at some point it's just like, well, people like your band now, 20 years later, like, sorry, they didn't like it in 1999, but like, why not go out and make people happy about it now? Like,
right. Instead of being salty about it. Well, you didn't like us back in the day. So
yeah. It's like,
half of them weren't born, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. People stuck around for it. People like you got to go to Europe, for like the experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Maybe the trade-off is 20 years later, you go out and you play big shows for people that are really excited. And,
nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No. Sorry, I had to bring that all back around.
No. I appreciate that you did. It's call to call back. We've talked nothing about Sumac, by the way, and we should mention that. So my understanding is that Aaron, when he was like first starting it up, right? Like it was wasn't necessarily like, here's the band. It was like, I'm just going to put these ideas down. And you kind of came, but you still came in rather on the early side as far as that, right? And we're talking about like from the initial 6-songer guy.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or am I off base here?
No, that's pretty much right. You know, like Aaron and I had talked for a while about doing some sort of project together, and it kind of ranged from, I had this idea of like inventing a death metal band and you know, like recording it like it was 1991 and like packaging it like it was 1991 and then like trying to sell it off like,
oh, check out this band we just like unearthed.
Yeah. Because I mean,
that's awesome.
So much of that shit right now, it's like, is this like, I have so many fucking death metal reissues from like 1991 where I'm like, I'm not sure this is a real band. I think this someone's. I think this is a put on. But anyway, like, you know, 12 years ago, that was, you know, my big plan. But Aaron was like, well, I'd like to do something that's a bit more in the sort of Casper Brotsman, like, you know, like dark and angry, but also kind of exploratory and
composed and
hypnotic and all that stuff.
Sure.
And then, you know, eventually he's just like, I've got songs. I've talked with Kurt Ballou about able-bodied drummers, and he's suggested this guy Nick from Baptists, and I went to go see Baptists, and they ruled. So I think we're gonna do this with this guy Nick, and we'll just see what happens. And then they wound up meeting up and recording the whole record while I was on tour, and I came in after the fact and played on it, and it was just kind of like, I have no idea what this
what it was going to be
is. Right? Yeah. And it really wasn't until like the first mix came back from Kurt that I was like, oh, like this is cool. Like I was completely baffled by it while we were working on it, but it was like an exciting thing to see take shape. And then, you know, I think it was initially intended to be like just a one-off record, you know, a fulfillment of an idea that Aaron had, and then the chemistry and the excitement of it just kind of kept it going. And
right.
Yeah.
Because you know you have something there. It's like, oh, there's something here we can explore. There's something we can do this thing differently, or because because it's very much that first one I'm talking about, the deal. It's very much like it's kind of noise rock a little bit, kind of like little industrial elements to it almost. But cool, right? Like, and not exactly what you would expect from the people involved too. Where it's like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And then, you know, I think that by the time you get to the second one, it's it's like it's kind of hitting full force at that point. But there is that kind of like feeling out almost of like, okay, well, what is this exactly? And but it was definitely like, it was interesting from the beginning, and again, one word band title, so that's great.
Yeah, it was, you know, like I said, it was like a thing where as it was coming together, it's like, I don't really understand what this is.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it was spoke enough of my language that it was something to be excited about, but it was also just weird enough to be something new and kind of challenging. And then when it was all done and you know, had the experience of listening to it as it was sort of intended to be heard, it was like, oh fuck, okay,
yeah,
I can't wait to do the next one
whatever that happens to be. when
I understand what we're trying to do here.
When you have like some idea of what the mission actually is.
Yeah.
Well, but it's cool because I mean, because that what one becomes, I mean, that's like some of the best Aaron Turner stuff I think I've heard, like personally, for my taste, I should say that. Like, because again, it's there's still that newness to it, but it's, I mean, there's movements. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that like whatever, not that that didn't happen in ISIS, but it's like it's different. It hits very different, and I think well, hearing that it's, you know, Brotsman being invoked is sort of like, okay, that makes sense. That tracks for this.
Well, I think there is like I think it's become more apparent as we've stuck around, but I think, there's definitely this heavy music vocabulary that's at the center of it. But
Yeah.
I think more than it being like another dirgy, low, chuggy, post metal thing like ISIS would be, it's way more, at least attempting to be like Casper Brodsman or KG Heino or like any weird, freaky guitar like Sonny Sharrock, like just weird experimental borderline jazz noise thing. And
it's got a foot in that almost improviser world.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. I mean, improviser world might be the wrong word, but it's like in that.
It's supposed to be a lot more expressionistic, and it's not like you're not getting the emotional content certainly not out of melody, because there's no melody,
right.
And not even out of just the sort of musical shorthand that we've created around heavy metal, where it's like, loud, quiet dynamics and distorted sounds and chuggy parts, thrashy parts, but just like purely in how the instrument is being played. There's like supposed to be a very emotionally resonant performance aspect to it that hopefully translates onto the record, but I think is really a big part of like the live experience with that band. So it's been fun seeing how that's evolved and been better integrated into what we do over the years. Like we did a new one back in May with Scott Evans that'll be out sometime next year. That's, I think, even further down that path of like, I don't know, like the first 12 minutes of the record's one note, but
oh wow, okay, going deep.
but one note like played in a lot of different ways, and like all kinds of peaks and valleys in terms of intensity, and it's, I don't know,
variations on a theme. And of course, I'd be remiss if not mentioning that at the time of this recording, these shows are, of course, in the future. But people listen to this whenever they listen to this. But November 1st, Sleeping Village Turf Club with Zach, with my friend of the show and actual friend Zach.
Oh, nice.
And then Columbia for the Experimental Music Festival. First, second, and third, there's these Sumac dates, and again, depending on when you're engaging with the show, that may or may not be in the future. But I wanted to make sure that we got in before that, because going back to the earlier conversation, I feel like I should have known about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's, it's a very, very real thing where it's, it's gone from like, I don't know, like, I don't want to be one of those artists that's ever like, why aren't people at my shows? Like, who's not doing their job?
Somebody
to
like, promote this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, it's like everybody's job to get the word out.
Yeah.
But now it's just at this point where it's like, I don't know how to get the word out, because I don't even know, the word's not even getting out to me for like 90% of like the things that are very relevant to my interests. So it's just,
I don't have any answers to that too. And I think it's a question that isn't asked nearly enough. And again, when there's think pieces on everything now, it's just like, this is a problem. This is a problem that it may not be less relevant to people that aren't touring musicians, but it is a problem. And it's
well, I mean, it's a problem to the guy that's in Indianapolis saying, when are you coming to Indianapolis? And you're like, dude, we were in Indianapolis last night.
Literally just
like,
there. Yeah.
Which happens every fucking day on tour. Every day on tour.
Every day. And like, people think I'm exaggerating. I'm like, no, it's literally every day. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, be like, hey, when are you playing SF next? Bro, we played last night.
Yeah.
Oh, when are you playing next? I don't know. Spring?
Yeah.
Like, we literally played last night. Like,
yeah.
What do you want from me?
And part of me is just like, I need to like just text all my friends when I'm rolling into town. But then there's the other part of me that's like, I'm not gonna be able to see all my friends, so I don't want to drag them out to a show and then ignore
then it's like,
them.
oh, well, what are you doing for dinner? I don't know, man. We got a sound check, and then we're gonna you almost have to. I don't know. It's this is such a specific set of complaints and issues, but it's something that it is. I mean, what I said on the site we shall not name was that, like, other than giving everyone an individual singing telegram, I don't know what it takes for people to be like aware of stuff. And like, it's strange, and it seems across genres, and it seems to be something that nobody really talks about except for to each other.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, you could do like a paid ad on Instagram, but like that seems tacky, but maybe that's just the thing you got to do now because you're not putting an ad. Like the club's not going to put an ad in the weekly anymore because that doesn't happen. So like, where does the advertising budget go? I guess then you do it. Yeah. But I don't follow every band that I like on Instagram because they feel like they have to provide content.
Because everyone's being an influencer, right? And you don't want to see a bunch of people talking to the camera.
I don't want to see your new outfit. Like, I don't care. I'm just here to find out when you're going to play my town. Yeah. And if I don't keep liking all the pictures of you in your new outfit from your last photo shoot,
then it disappears.
Then the algorithm's going to weed you out, and I'm not going to know that like you're playing my town. So it's stupid.
The struggle is real. The struggle is so and it's crazy that, you know, I mean, like, I remember back was like okay, so our Big Brother band was like Babyland, and they would like send postcards to people when they were like playing, and I'm like, is that where we have to go back to, where you just go back to like give us your mailing address and we will literally send you something like when I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a terrible. I mean,
actually, maybe we should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about doing actual mailing list shit all the time, just because it's like, and not even like email lists, but like actual like, no, send me a letter. I'll send you a postcard letting you know we're going on tour.
Right.
Because like,
it's actually not a bad idea. We should do that.
Yeah, I think we've actually struck upon something.
Yeah. Right. Well, because email, like, especially younger folks too. Whatever. May as well email your cat, you know? Like, you're not going to get any response. And that's the problem with, like, there are services like Songkick and Bands in Town and stuff that, like, that do that. And, like, okay, cool, but you have to know that exists, sign up for it, then read the email. I mean, it's like there's all these.
And it always just goes into your promotion folder anyway.
Yeah, then it's spam. Yeah, so it's. Yeah, I can start singing telegrams and postcards is where we're at. I mean, whatever works, you know.
Yeah, I'm willing to do it. Like I'm not. It's like I don't ever want to issue these complaints where it's like I don't want to do extra work. It's like no, work's fine. I just want it to be like work that works. Like
you want to have some efficacy to it. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It needs to be effective work, and I don't think that's a lot to ask for.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's these Sumac shows coming up. that are the day this is going live for the general feed, and then there's basically a ton of Botch stuff before, like, pre-Thanksgiving, and right in the window of the pre-Thanksgiving window. Yep. which includes Atlanta, New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Boston, LA, and Santa Ana and whatnot are all December, right? If I remember right. I guess I just looked this up. I'm sitting here like freeballing, but
yeah, you got it. It's East Coast in November and West Coast in the beginning of December, and
right,
yeah,
which you can do.
Yeah.
Can't do the Midwest in December, or you shouldn't anyway. Actually, it was a real dry. It wasn't very snowy last year. So
yeah, that's kind of what I remember. It seems like y'all are. I don't know. You're coming out on the winning end of climate change, at least for the time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great place to be after 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's there's something to be said for if you are able to come out to and do a show in inclement weather conditions where people have been cooped up for weeks and stuff. People will really be deeply appreciative and lose their mind for it. But
yeah,
you also got to go to a place where it's snowing and.
Oh, dude, we did. Circles did 2 January tours in a row. The first one was like a support tour, and we did it. It's like, why don't we just always tour in January? Like, you're not competing with anyone.
There's nothing else. Like, that's a nice thing. There's nothing else. Yeah,
it's great. But we had really good weather the whole time. And the next January we went out, and like the first week of shows were all in places that had like school closures from ice and things like that. And like, it's like, barely getting to the show, and then people wisely not going out to the shows when it's dangerous out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh no, it's here, but like I'm glad because at least they're being safe. Yeah.
You might literally die if you go out right now. Okay, well maybe we won't go to the show then. Yeah, but you never know. It's a dice roll with that.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot. We've talked precious little about the music, which is surprising to me. But I did want to mention I like the Torment Glory record a lot. And
awesome! Thank you.
I think that was a very interesting release that if people only are aware of you from maybe a couple bands, they wouldn't necessarily expect that. How did that album come to pass? Was it over the course of time? Was it like a COVID project? What was the impetus?
Well, it was both. I had been talking with a friend here in town that ran a little cassette noise label years ago, like back in the early 2010s. And I've been talking to him about doing like a sort of a noisy folk album. The idea kind of stemming from hearing Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska on a friend's turntable.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But he had left it on the turntable for so long that it was so dusty. It just kind of the whole side would play in 2 minutes because it would just sort of skate across the grooves. But every once in a while you'd get this haunting Nebraska fragment, and then it would just be white noise again. And it was just kind of this getting a weird transmission from somewhere else through the static. And it's I want to make a record that sounds like that. And I tried it on a 4-track a bunch and just couldn't ever replicate what I'd heard.
It's a very specific set of criteria there. So
yeah. And a big part of it was just, I wanted it to be actual songs. I'd spend all this time writing these songs, and then I'd have to drown my kittens, so to speak, where it's just all right, well, now half of this is going to get buried. And
now this is going to be right. This is going to be buried under some weird filter or whatever. Yeah.
I just could never get it to where I liked it. But one song from the project wound up on the Russian Circles Empress album. The last song on that record.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is a part of that. And then, but I had the songs were still there, and I just kept tinkering with them and refining them over the years. And when COVID hit, it's just I should just record these so I can be done with them, and I'm not playing these songs. It's for me, it's just living in an apartment for so much of my life. I don't have an amp at my house, and it's just an acoustic guitar. So if it's 10 minutes until I'm leaving to go run errands, it's 10 minutes, I'll just play these fucking fingerpick songs that I've been working on. And right. I just needed them out of my head. So I started working on them during COVID, just as demos, figuring I'd record them properly with a friend. But I'd been talking with my buddy Ben Chisholm, who's Chelsea Wolf's, right hand man, and
pretty busy dude, and with his own stuff too. Yeah.
And he was just well, if you ever want me to take a stab at mixing it, I was he's great at that stuff.
Yeah, so he's okay. Yeah, he's getting good.
Yeah, it felt like it was a very gracious offer for him, and it'd be a very stupid thing not to take advantage of. And he just completely transformed all these songs. And then it was one of those things where I was well, maybe I'll just put out a tape. And then Ben was you just need to send this to Sargent House and just have them do it. And so I sent it to Kathy, and she's a tape? Don't do fucking tapes. Tapes are fucking stupid. Who buys fucking tapes? Don't do that. We'll just put out 500 copies on LP. And it's
okay.
Did this just get signed?
I was gonna say this is the easiest release ever.
Yeah. And that's And so we just printed up 500 copies, and it's a thing that's out in the world now. So,
do you think you're gonna do more?
I think so. Yeah. It's I even though I play in all these heavy bands, I love the singer-songwriter tradition. And
sure,
there's certainly no shortage of indie folk artists who have just really mucked up the whole genre. But I love all the Elephant Six stuff and the weird tape experiment stuff that they did. And I love Silver Jews and all the protest singers of the 60s. So it's just a nice counterpoint to everything else that I do. So
well, and there's even there's some precedent for it. Look at listen to some of the J Jail stuff, right? It's not that far afield from it. It's and just because you play one thing doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
And that's genre loyalists are are interesting that way.
It's cool. I mean, there's definitely genre loyalists that I admire. It's like, wow, you do that one thing and you are committed, and that's fucking cool.
That is the thing that you do. Great.
Yeah. And there's people that like just jump from genre to genre every year, and it's just like, this all just seems disingenuous. So it's, you know, there's a balance to be struck there for sure. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just a nice counterpoint to the other stuff
it was
I
a
do.
deeply surprising, but in a good way, record for me. Where I was like, oh, cool. This is
Oh, thank you.
didn't have it on my bingo card, but here we go. What's your practice regime like, man? Like, you got like, I feel like there's not tons of crossover usually. Like the fact that there's like Sumac and Botch stuff coming up is kind of like, seems like something of an outlier, but like that's a lot of songs to keep track of.
It is. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. You're an older guy, so maybe you can share this phenomenon. But when you're, 20, you know all your songs like the back of your hand. It's like, I will never not know how to play this song. Right.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's like you maybe have 24 songs that your brain has to store. So it's like, like you can recall.
Yeah.
It's like, I bet you've memorized 6 telephone numbers too. But
right.
Let me tell
all
you,
all six in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Like at some point, you only have room for those 6 telephone numbers and those 24 songs. So once you start adding on to it, it's just like, it's tough to jump between the bands, but I don't hate being busy, and it's, as long as there's a couple days to go over stuff, it's usually not too bad.
You got to kind of ring the bell in your own mind of like, how's that one go again? And then you're like, oh, it's this. And then there is a element that it almost seems like cheating or something, where you're like, oh yeah, I know this.
Yeah.
How do I know this? Oh, I just know it. Okay.
Yeah. Like the tougher one is Circles, just because nothing with Circles is very hard with the hands. It's all just kind of like, everything flows easily, but there's usually like 3 things also happening at the same time. And there's pedal changes. Yeah. Pedal changes. And like, like a chorus that has to be played. And
right.
It's the limb independence.
Yeah.
That takes training, and that's not just muscle memory stuff, unfortunately. But that's the only really tough one.
It's cool, man. I'm glad. I'm glad that. I don't think I'm going to see any of these shows, but I might rally to Chicago. We'll see. I don't know. Probably not. Like, let's get real. Probably not.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've been to Milwaukee. I feel bad for Milwaukee. It's been like, man, it's probably been 5 years since I've been through.
I mean, it's awesome here, but I get it. It's like it's one of those things where you got to call your shots on stuff too, And it's like if Chicago's going to be like, turns out it makes sense for you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a shame because it's like, man, the Cactus Club's so fun, but at a certain, like Sumac needs to play the Cactus Club. I don't know why we're not playing there, but with Circles, the last couple times we played there, it's like, this is great. It's a sold out show.
Yeah.
This is fucking a hard club for us to play at this point when you have like lighting rigs and things like that. So it's
a lot of stuff. Yeah. A lot of,
and then it turns into like, I guess we could downsize and scale everything back. And then it's like, then are people going to be mad that we've scaled back? And, you enter that weird conversation. So
there was a great, Life and Times played at Cactus, and there was a great like, hey, can we use our smoke machine kind of conversation, and it's a funny exchange. Absent of context, it won't seem funny at all, but like it was all let's put it this way, it was all in the inflection of the answer. But it's still, I mean, they were able to pull it off. It's just it got to be scaled back a little bit, because ultimately it's Cactus Club is a great venue, but it's a weird venue in the fact that it semes bigger than it is, and they're like, oh yeah, this isn't that big.
No, like holds 99 people or something. Like it's tiny.
Like I always would think of it, and again, this is before I lived here. What I would be playing out here, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like 200 people, whatever. Like, no, it really isn't.
It's not. That's what you think. That's what you think it is.
It feels like it, but it's not at all. Which is kind of funny.
And then when you have to do a changeover and a sold out show there, Boy.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Not great, folks. Not great.
Yeah.
But it's obviously a great venue. You should definitely come to Milwaukee. They'll definitely be like, I have gone down. I have done the go down to Chicago and drive back on my own many a time. I'm just burnt out on driving right now.
I don't blame you. Do not blame you. And that's a drive that's like on the map. It's just like that's nothing.
Yeah.
But when you do that drive, it's like, ooh.
It takes a little something out of you,
Yeah,
especially like late at night.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
doing it late at night's the only time where it's not super annoying. But then it's
right.
then
Because
it's
you either
still-
have mad traffic, no matter what time, or it's just like lost highway.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's nothing in between, and
Yep.
those are different dangers for different reasons. But anyway, whatever. We're not here to discuss about how people consider Milwaukee a suburb of Chicago, but I obviously strongly urge everyone to check out those Sumac shows because those should be awesome. And I think if you haven't gotten tickets yet, I think for the Botch shows you're probably out of luck. I think a lot of them are sold out at this point, right? If I remember correctly. So
Yeah, I think Atlanta still has some, and it's we were trying to not overstay our welcome or oversaturate anyone, so it's just like I don't want to be yelled at by people who couldn't get tickets,
right.
but I also don't want to I don't want to overstay our welcome or play empty half full rooms or whatever. So
we all know of bands that have stayed a little bit too long past when the party should have ended.
yeah.
And it's what it is, man. It's there's nothing.
Yeah, we'll just assume that those are just simple miscalculations. So it's fine. It's a fine art figuring out supply and demand. So not to put it in business terms again, but
can't always get it on the first try, and it's an ineffable art to be sure. Like you're not dealing with combobulating widgets, you're dealing with music and creativity. Brian, it's been awesome, man. Thanks so much for being on the show. I'm I'm glad I so cheekily suggested you come on the show in as a subtweet. Sub X? What do we call it now?
Yeah, I don't even know.
It's been something I've been meaning to ask you to do for a long time, so I am nothing if not resourceful when it comes time to asking people things that I should have asked them years ago. And feel free to come on again anytime, maybe with more notice. Sorry.
You seem very well researched and ready for this conversation. So, it's I'm hats off to you for being
it's the key to the show.
Willing.
And like for me, it's about like taking that place that zines used to be, where it's like, oh yeah, the people were actually interested in the folks they're talking to. Huh, crazy.
Yeah. Maybe I should know a thing or two.
Yeah. Maybe I should know something about the subject instead of acting like background research causes physical pain.
Yeah.
Last thing, it's the only canned question I ever ask on the show, and you can choose to interpret it however you like, but why do you do what you do?
Oh, damn. That's like existential shit right there. I don't know. I guess because you gotta put something out into the world. It's like everyone wants to, leave something behind and have something that shows you around. So this seems like a positive thing that you can do. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things about music that were very sacred to me and got me through, tough adolescent times. And I think there's, even as I get old and maybe a little cynical about things, I still think the punk community and the hardcore community and, all the various subcultural musical phenomenons that have been around in my lifetime have provided a lot of solace and catharsis for me personally, and I know it does for other people. So to be a part of that, I feel good about it. I don't know. I look around at like all my friends doing things and I feel like nobody's happy with what they're doing in life, or it's just like even people that have like cool jobs find something to complain about. And it's like, yeah, like that's the nature of being alive in the 21st century, like you're bound to contribute to something that you feel weird about. So the fact that I've figured out how to just do music and giving people something to be happy about is like a pretty special thing, something to be very grateful and feel very fortunate about. So that's why I do it. But I think even if no one cared, I think I'd probably still do it in some capacity. Just people wouldn't hear it. So.
Well, thank you for doing it. And Brian, thanks so much for being on the show, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Yeah. Come back again sometime.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Anytime. Yeah.
And good luck and safe travels on all the tours and break a leg and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, Brian.
Bye.
There he goes. Brian Cook, Sumac, Russian Circles, Botch, Torment Glory. These Arms Are Snakes. Go see him on tour. He's doing Botch. He's doing Sumac. In fact, let's hear a Sumac song to play us out here. Image of Control is what I'm going to play here. All right. So there you go. That was some Sumac.
Is this thing on?
That was part 1 of Image of Control. I'm not giving it all away for free here, people. Hey, so that was Brian Cook. This is a special episode of Protonic Reversal. Thanks so much for listening to it. Not at the normal time, trying to get back in it. Get my rhythm back. Yeah.
Are we going?
So, yeah, the name of this show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you so much for listening to it. This show airs usually Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Streaming on YouTube and Twitch live. Podcasted later everywhere. Always for free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. But if you like the show and want to get episodes sooner, you can do that by going to patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. $1 a month, early access. That'll get you there. And it also helps support the show. Keeps the lights on. Literally and figuratively. So, always appreciate it for folks to do that.
Signing off.
Thanks, everyone. Sharing the episodes around.
All ships at sea.
Letting everyone know
Anyone within
there's
the sound
something
of my
there.
voice.
Subscribing on your platform of choice. All that helps people find the show, and it's just a nice thing to do. So, appreciate it.
50,000 watts of power.
Lots of good stuff coming up. Lots of good stuff. Gary Floyd of the Dicks on Thursday. Some punk rock royalty. So, looking forward to that. We're back at it regularly. So, apologies to everyone. Well, not apologies. I was on tour. What can I do about it? But thanks for listening. And stay safe out there.
Can you hear me now? Out on
Check you later.
128, dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,